Well, in the inaugural bilateral visit of his third term and his first to Russia since it invaded Ukraine back in February 2022, Prime Minister Narendra Modi landed in Moscow with a clear message that New Delhi sought to play a supportive role for a peaceful and stable region, and both sides were committed to deepening their special and privileged strategic partnership in futuristic areas of cooperation. But the big development, our sources say, Russia has decided to discharge and facilitated return of all Indians working in the Russian army after our Prime Minister took up the matter with President Putin just a few hours ago. Earlier confirming that several Indians have actually been duped into working in the Russian army, our Ministry of External Affairs had said it had strongly taken up the matter with the Russian government for the early discharge of such Indian nationals. My colleague Vasudha Venugopal has been tracking the latest updates from Moscow. But first, listen in to what the Russian president had to say regarding Mr. Modi.
आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, परम दोस्त, आपका स्वागत है, हार्दिक स्वागत है। आपको देखने से मुझे बड़ी खुशी है।
Официальные разговоры у нас состоятся завтра.
औपचारिक बातचीत कल होने वाली है।
А сегодня мы можем в такой домашней обстановке спокойно поговорить, наверное, о тех же вопросах, но неофициально.
और आज अनौपचारिक रूप से हम घर के वातावरण में हम उसी मामलों पर बात कर सकते हैं।
The big development being Russia has decided to discharge and facilitated return of all Indians working in the Russian army. We have these details thanks to my colleague Akhilesh, who joins us live. Akhilesh, what have your sources disclosed?
Sources have confirmed that in the private dinner which was hosted by the Russian President Vladimir Putin last night, Prime Minister Narendra Modi raised this issue before him, and that Indians are worried. We have been reporting that how families in Punjab and Haryana especially, they are worried about the safety of their family men because they were recruited in Russia. They were promised high-paying jobs, and they were misled to be, and they were taken there, and then later on they were recruited in the Russian army and sent on the frontier. That's why President Modi had raised this issue before President Putin last night in the private dinner. And we've been told by the sources that now the Russia has assured and promised that all those Indians who are recruited in the Russian army will be discharged from the army, and the safe return of them will be facilitated by Russia shortly. In the past also, India has raised this matter before the Russia. In fact, the Ministry of External Affairs had formally raised this issue with the Russian counterparts and saying very clearly that they should be returned safely to India. In the past, we have seen that at least 2 Indians have been killed in action at the borders, and India protested before the Russia for the recruitment. Now, Russia has promised that all of them will be discharged and will be sent back to India safely.
A major relief for India indeed. Thank you so much, Akhilesh, for joining us with those crucial details. With that, let's also go across to my colleague Vasudha Venugopal's ground report.
In an important diplomatic move, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Moscow on Monday. This is his first bilateral meeting since he took charge as the Prime Minister of the country for the third time. He is meeting Vladimir Putin, the President of Russia. In fact, this is the first proper bilateral meeting between the two leaders after 2021 when they met for the annual India-Russia meeting that was held in India. In fact, Mr. Modi has come to Russia, has come to Moscow, in fact, after 9 years. In 2019, he did come to Russia, but he was part of an economic conclave in the eastern city of Vladivostok. Now, this meeting, this visit of Mr. Modi is clearly very important because this is his first visit to Russia after the Ukraine-Russia war broke out. According to sources in the government, the war will also be amongst the agenda points in the meeting between the two leaders in the course of the next 24 hours. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Putin will be meeting at least 3 times. So there is a lot of face time that they will be getting with each other. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2022 on the sidelines of the SEO conference in Uzbekistan, Samarkand, had specifically remarked that this is not an era of war. ये युद्ध का युग नहीं है. That is what he had said, which has in some ways become the central theme of India's G20 presidency. It had reverberated even in the joint statement that India had come out along with other countries as part of its G20 presidency, the consensus, the statement of consensus. So that line, that consistency will be repeated even in the meetings with President Putin is what sources are telling us. Apart from that, there could be various announcements in the field of trade, of course, in terms of understanding energy requirements of both countries, also tech transfer, and most importantly defense ties. Remember, India is dependent on Russia for a significant amount of its defense weapons and ammunition. It has been asking for upgraded ammunition and fighter jets, but in the last few years India has also diversified its defense procurement to different countries, specifically USA and also France. Apart from that, India will also be pressing for the early release of several Indians who have been reportedly misled into fighting, into joining the Russian army to fight against Ukraine. There are about 30 to 50 such persons is what we hear from official sources, and in fact 10 of them have been, Indian government has managed to get 10 of them back, and 4 of them unfortunately have died, and India is going to put a lot of pressure on Russia to ensure that it's that the Indians sort of trapped in this whole network nexus get released as soon as possible. Apart from that, there is going to be a lot of talk about tech transfer, space collaboration, and also people-to-people ties. Remember, this is an important meeting for Russia as well, that is seeking to restore some of its lost influence and power in a world that is looking at multilateralism.